going live. Hey everyone, welcome to another session of Your Desk University. It's so good to see you. And you can see I have a guest host next to me, Lebo. Lee, wave, say hi to everyone. We'll be in the chat, we'll talk to you. If you're watching this afterwards, leave some comments below. We want to support you. Your Desk University is created to connect tech experts with innovators and computational designers and really people who are pushing the AEC forward. Today we're going to be talking about reality capture. I mean, everything in reality capture, everything from scanning a wedding venue so you know the space that you're working with, to scanning an entire city block so you can move a bridge into place. The guys who are on the panel are your AEC tech experts. I'm not going to tell you more about them. You saw their images beforehand. Lebo will introduce them in a moment. One thing I will say is to make sure you catch the latest classes whenever they go live. Go ahead and hit that notification bell on YouTube. That will give you, if you're subscribed to it, an email whenever we get a new posting. And I know the people who are involved in this, they want to be involved. We want to see you live. We want to be here to chat with you. We're here to answer the Q&A. I believe the speakers all have the chat open so they can interact with you in that way. And maybe they're saying hi in there. I actually don't have it on screen right now, so I'm sorry, fail. But that being said, I do want to say a couple things about Lebo. Lebo's been helping with some of our website stuff for Your Desk, and I'm grateful to his participation. He's going to be presenting our speakers, but Lebo is an innovator and software developer and really a leader in New York City. A lot of these guys connect from some experience and history at WeWork, and I'm grateful to him and the others that are collaborating and coordinating to make this happen. So with that, Lebo, I'll hand it off to you, and I look forward to hearing from our tech experts.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Timon. So I'm going to introduce you guys to our three great experts. We have a really exciting group. They all are in reality capture, but they all apply their trade in very different ways. We have Shaun Lewis from Coda, we have Kyle Johnson from Avvir, and we have Matt Hamilton from the Wedding Scanner. I'm going to keep it short, so we're going to start with Shaun, and he'll give you more detail about his work.
Thanks, Lebo. Thanks, Tim. So I'm just going to jump right into it and share my screen and show you guys what we're doing at Coda. So Coda is an affiliate of Clark Construction. Coda is short for construction data. So that's kind of where we were born from. And the Coda on the reality capture side, this is our spectrum, and these are all the tools that we use. We own every single one of these things.
Yep. Sorry, Shaun, I think we're missing the presentation. Oh, there we go.
All right, sorry about that. This is our reality capture spectrum. We own all of these tools that are on here, and we use them on a daily basis. Starting at the simplest form, which is your iPhone, just using the camera that's on the side of there, mixing with some different types of software. 360 cameras, those are getting a lot bigger place, particularly on construction site for photo documentation. Imaging laser scanners, BLK 360, and the Matterport. We've seen a big uptick with Matterport from COVID-19. People not be able to visit job sites, not be able to visit sites. They really like the Matterport high res for the virtual tours. Drones, we fly drones on construction sites from pursuit phase all the way through construction phase for photo documentation. And then on the laser scanning side, we own Pharaohs, we own the Leica P series, we own Leica RTC. So a little bit of everything. We like to say that we want to use the right tool for the job. And how I define reality capture is it is the digital documentation of an existing condition at a specific moment in time. The way Coda is differentiating ourselves is everyone does laser scanning in one way or another. We provide a product. So one of our products is SiteView. SiteView is all about actionable insights. So we'll go out, laser scan a site, and then we're going to tell you where some problems might come up. So we're not just scanning and say, hey, here's a point cloud. We're going to scan, compare the point cloud to the drawings and say, hey, currently there's a pile that's falling underneath of this historic overhang, and you're not going to be able to install that pile. So that's where we're a little bit differentiating ourselves, is we're providing that in a more consumable format, in an easy way. I mean, everyone on this Zoom call is it into tech. A lot of people still just kind of need a PDF, and that's what we're providing, a PDF report full of actual insights of what is going on with their site. Something else we like to do a lot of is a virtual pick plan. The one I'm going to show you today is of the Ballston pedestrian bridge. Tim had set me up pretty well with this, talking about scanning a city block and how we got a bridge to plan for installing it. And this is how we did it. So you're seeing the bridge being transported down the road. This is in downtown Ballston. The crane comes in, sets up its rigging, and then it starts lifting. What was great from this exercise is we found out there was only one way to do this. When it's spinning the bridge, if you look on the left side of the screen now, there's a one-story jog in the building that's pushed out further than the rest of the building. It had to be spun above that jog in the building before being put down in place, and that was the only way to make it happen. And this was critical to the whole planning process. We actually laid out the crane and its location based on this plan. This is one of my favorite pictures because this was our validation. It showed it. What we planned for actually happened out in the field, and that was really the beauty of it. You see so many times, BIM, VDC, scanning, all these things get done by us tech experts, but that doesn't get applied out in the field. This is one of those instances where it got applied out in the field, and it worked really well. Another one of our products is Building Check. Everyone, I'm sure, here is familiar with scan to BIM process, and that's what our Building Check is, scan to BIM, but it's a little bit more than that. So ultimately, Building Check is about understanding the existing buildings. So we'll go in, scan it, we'll get the model created, but then we dive in a little bit more. We provide some analysis. So we'll provide analysis of the slab. We'll provide analysis of the slab above, make sure the slab doesn't droop down too much, which could affect your ceiling heights. Ceiling heights are especially critical in the Washington, D.C. Area. We do that same thing with, as we talked about with the site view, where we provide some actual insights of, hey, you might have an issue here. So instead of giving just a model and then hoping everything goes well, we give a model and other things. It's, hey, look out for this. So when you get to that point where you're building it later in a construction phase, you know what to anticipate. That was the ones for reality capture, Coda's products. We also do some additional ones, which is UView, which we coordinate all the underground stuff. We have Design Align, which is scripts that check models. And then we have Turnover Vision, which helps with punch list. And that is Coda and some of the ways that we're differentiating ourselves with reality capture.
That's amazing. Really cool seeing that image of scanned reality turning back into real reality. Kyle?
Right. Yeah, I'll piggyback on that. That was a great presentation, Shaun. That was pretty amazing. Give me one
Thanks.
second and I'll share my screen. All right. So a little bit more intro on myself. Kyle Johnson, head of MMVDC at Avvir, which is a software company that automates construction progress tracking and construction verification by leveraging BIM models and multiple forms of reality capture. Another way that we like to think of ourselves is by calling ourselves a system of reality for buildings. So some points about why we exist. As we all know here, construction is inefficient. There is approximately, probably more at this point because it dates back to 2012, more than $1 trillion spent in construction on rework alone across all projects globally. General contractors alone spend about $6.5 billion updating project schedules per year. So with those two things in mind, Avvir solution is to create a digital twin to do three things: spot mistakes, track and visualize progress, and at the end of a construction project, to create an accurate as-built model. So how does that work? There are 4 simple steps. You upload the building model to us, usually in the form of a highly coordinated digital fabrication model from your subcontractors. You also scan or work with a scanning partner to scan the job site. And you upload those two things together onto our platform, and we provide you with our Avvir analysis, which our algorithm actually compares the scans to the building plans to show you what's deviated and what's built. Not only how much of a particular model is built, but what's actually installed correctly. So once we actually provide you with that analysis, you can also make that analysis more actionable by updating your model in its native format, whether that be Revit or a Navisworks file or some other form of IFC or Tekla file. So we have a bidirectional workflow where we allow you to actually update your information so that it's tracking live to you, so that you actually have a digital twin of what's happening on site. So what does that look like? Here's a snapshot of a particular floor. Of course, in our demo project, you can see in this particular interior fit out, this is a highly coordinated MEP model with walls, doors, architectural backgrounds. Based on our analysis, we're able to tell you an overall progress tracking by uniformat trades, so you can get a high level understanding of how much of your particular project is actually being installed according to schedule. And you can visualize those results in a 3D format. So you can see some of the elements are transparent. Other elements, like this particular piece of flex duct, is translucent, so you can see through it, which indicates things that are built and not built. We also have the ability to ingest your project schedule to plot on the gray line what the intended schedule is supposed to show, or what the intended amount of work that's supposed to happen over the course of a project schedule for every single individual trade that you might be interested in. And then over the course of time, we're able to plot periodically, ingesting your scan data. And actually recently we've created a process to where we can ingest your 360 photo data. Over increments of time, we're able to plot where you actually are in comparison to your project schedule. So that was the progress monitoring piece. Now we can also talk about verification. So by ingesting the scans, we can tell you not only how much is installed, but what's installed correctly. So again, looking at an example of our viewer, it's pretty simplified. Everything here that's red is effectively bad or installed incorrectly, and we can change that tolerance based on whatever insights we're interested in. So as you can imagine, a lot of things that are installed are deviated by at least an inch or more, which, as you can imagine, is pretty common. An up-close example of what that starts to look like is when we overlay the point cloud. You can see a secondary element that we click on for this particular piece of ductwork. There's a secondary element that comes into play, which shows you where our algorithm has actually determined where this particular piece of ductwork is installed, therefore providing you, live geometry of what pieces of ductwork or what pieces of whatever trade you're interested in are actually installed. A little bit of guts of how the algorithm actually works. We upload a BIM, usually in IFC format, and we can actually ingest that BIM, and it breaks down into voxels. We also voxelize the scan data, and our algorithm compares points in the point cloud to BIM elements based on proximity and other criteria, and we provide you with this sort of deviation reporting in a 3D format. Some scanners that, of course, we can ingest depending on what your different needs are. Stationary scanners, which of course are going to provide you with a much higher level of accuracy, and therefore, making our results much more high fidelity. And then there are also mobile scanners, which really greatly increase the speed of reality capture, which is a little bit of a barrier. But by using mobile scanners, you sacrifice a little bit of accuracy for speed and volume. So these are kind of the two buckets that we see at least LiDAR technology falling into. So a quick feature summary. I'm not going to read all of these. Happy to speak with anyone else who's interested, but generally speaking, identify real-time errors, track percentage complete, and track construction progress monitoring. And that's it.
Amazing. It's really cool to see all the information kind of elevated into a platform level data perspective and being able to integrate so many different components into the same workflow and thought. Matt, you want to give it a go?
Hey, Lebo. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Shaun. Let me share what I have. All right, we good there? Okay, so my presentation is less about the finished result and more about my initial obsession with reality capture and the winding path it took me on to get to something that is what I call the wedding scanner, a company I started called the Wedding Scanner. So I guess the theme of this talk is looking for applications for reality capture beyond the mainstream and outside of the AEC realm. So this is the story behind the Wedding Scanner. The Wedding Scanner began with a pretty basic, pretty common starting place with for reality capture. I was working in 2016 with point clouds to build existing conditioned Revit models. So very standard scan to bin process, but I was blown away by point clouds. They were very interesting to me. I loved the speed of which you could pull a whole building into, or digitize a whole building so quickly. So there began the obsession. So I went out, I rented a BLK scanner and I did a few scans. This is the first one I ever did, was a windmill in Long Island, New York. I thought about how it could be used in scanning things like art exhibitions. Went out to a art exhibition here by CJ Hendry called Monochrome. These are photos of the exhibition, but this is what the scan looked like. It was sort of set up as an apartment building, and although there was no real end goal for what we could do here, it was just interesting to analyze a point cloud that captured both this sort of structural side of this exhibition as well as the artistic side. Used the same BLK on the Flatiron building, realized that it's probably not strong enough to capture the full extent of the building, so that was a good lesson in learning more about scanners. Also took my hand to photogrammetry, looked at different ways that I could explore using photogrammetry to create a business. One of these is looking at a Spartan race. So examining how I could digitize these sort of, a Spartan race is sort of like a big race that they go through all these obstacles over a longer track. So I went out there and caught some of these obstacles and digitized them into this photogrammetry and sort of spoke to the marketing lead at the Spartan race. And while they were interested, it never sort of went beyond that. Same with this other example, gravestone in the Greenwood Cemetery it's a big cemetery in New York. We looked at how we could sort of memorialize these things. It's a bit of a common theme, I guess, in using photogrammetry for heritage work and digitizing these sort of older physical monuments. Also looked at exploring how you could represent these point clouds in this instance on a web-based platform using this is an example using Voxer. Just upload a point cloud, you can navigate it quite well. And then eventually I decided, okay, I think there's an opportunity in looking at event venues. So the wedding scanner was born. It was early one morning, I thought of a punny joke to call it the wedding scanner. I got the domain, I got the Instagram, and then I told the friend whose wedding had inspired me to think of reality capture used for events. And she worked for Vogue and posted it, and I was like, oh, okay, now I actually have to do something about this. So I decided events was it. I was going to focus on that. So I thought, how can reality capture help in events? Speaking to different event companies, event venues, there was some horrific floor plans out there. So I was like, all right, let's start with floor plans. I think we can make them really beautiful and more understandable for definitely non-AEC related clients. I think generally speaking, everyone who's getting married does not come from the AEC industry overwhelmingly. So it started with floor plans. One of the first places we got to scan was the New York Public Library. I just went to their New York Public Library events page and asked them on Instagram if I could scan their awesome hall. And they said yes, they needed a floor plan. So that was a great place to start. So we got a scan, did a floor plan. This is also another web-based viewer that we use called Potry. Actually, Lebo helped me in setting this up. And he could definitely speak more to it, perhaps in the questions. But it was a very quick way to quickly host and share this point cloud through the web. We also got another room from the New York Public Library. We also started looking at Matterport. As Shaun mentioned, Matterport's a huge thing for especially pandemic times, but also for event venues. We use the BLK for these external scans. So that was something that not many event venues were offering. Not many event, videographers, photographers were offering because they didn't have the ability to do these outside captures. Another example, this is another event venue in New York. And then, so we had the floor plans, we had the Matterports, we had some film, and the next step was, okay, we've also got these floor plan models in Revit, so what can we do to share that information in its model form? So we started using Sketchfab. Sketchfab's a great website to host mesh models. So we were able to upload our Revit models as well as our photogrammetry models. If you live in New York, you probably know this hotel, the Wythe Hotel. That was a moderately illegal capture, flying the drone over that without any clearance prior, but I think it was a good result. With that came the drone. That also helped with the film. I guess you can consider film a avenue of reality capture. And then on top of everything, we use those, scan to BIM process to create these very lifelike texturized models that we could add another layer on through using Enscape as a live rendering tool, and using Enscape to pull out these fly-through videos that showed you different layout options at the venue. And when that became part of the process, that caught the eye of Zola, which is a wedding registry company, also looking at expanding its sort of venue marketplace listings. They were opening an avenue of growth in inspiration, so the ability to show those different layouts in the same video became something that they were interested in. So we signed up an MSA with Zola, and now we are one of the providers in New York for floor plans. You can see here we have a Matterport and a Sketchfab model up on their venue landing page. So that's where the wedding scanner is now. It's a small business that's thinking outside the box in terms of reality capture, and found a avenue of pursuit in events and weddings. And at the moment, it's very much we're a vendor for Zola to create these different marketing collateral for all these different event venues. But the future, as we see it, is we're slowly collecting this big. We're collecting a lot of mesh models of venues, and the power and potential in that is, I think, that we can start to see or start to explore different ways that we can start to iterate on these same event venues, using some sort of web-based client that you can start to map out your event venue in a web platform that you can do yourself. So that's where we're at now, and yeah, happy to jump into some questions.
Oh, amazing. For those of you watching, make sure just to throw questions in the chat, and we will go over them. Thank you, Matt. That was a wide variety of different things that you've shown. I guess that's a good lead into our first question. How did you guys all come into reality capture? Like, what was your background? What really attracted you to the industry? And, what do you feel is something that drives you in what you do right now? We can go the same presentation order first, if that works.
Yeah, that works. So my background was in the civil engineering side, and then more specifically, then I got into surveying. I am a professional land surveyor in Maryland. So that's how I got into laser scanning probably, it's been a while, 10 plus years ago. I think for me, it was when the C10 first kind of came out. That was when I really kind of got into it. I saw a little bit of the older, kind of slower stuff. And our big job at one point was Union Station in DC. So all of Union Station, outside, inside, the rail on the back, and that's when I got hooked. I knew that there was absolute that was going to be the future of so much of just measurements, and that's when I got into it, and I haven't really looked back since.
Yeah, so for me, my background is in architecture. I first got exposed to reality capture and laser scans at WeWork, and very similar to Matt, I very quickly developed an obsession with laser scans and just the speed at which you can actually digitize a building. And I'll take those words directly from your mouth because it's a great way to kind of describe it. But and the reason that what kind of drives me right now is just understanding, in the short amount of time that I've been exposed to it and seeing how far it's come. It just really makes me excited about where it can go, and starting to understand how all these different players are just now, especially with the onset of this pandemic, which, is one of the very few good things about this, is that people are really starting to leverage, reality capture and understanding and seeking out the ideas about what it means to have a digital twin of your construction site.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I also, probably about the same time as Carl at WeWork, my background was a BIM manager, and then seeing a point cloud in my Revit model and tracing it, it was also almost a relaxing experience, knowing that everything was actually the correct measurements, and just to trace it and know that I had a Revit model that was going to check out on the construction field was really exciting.
Thanks, guys. I'm going to try to combine some of the chat questions together into one, but I think this is probably something that all three of you, have to manage in some level. How much does managing accuracy and noise come into play in terms of what you do? And then what are the ways you balance that, depending on the different situations you deal with or different projects?
I think it kind of depends on what the deliverable is. So that's how we always kind of look at projects, is what's our end game. If you know all you're delivering is a Revit model and that's the final product, then you don't have to go in and clean out the people that have been walking through the noise. Like, you know what your end deliverable is, so that you're just going to make that model really good. If you're doing analysis of the point cloud, then you want to go in there and clean it up a little bit more. In regards to accuracy, we try to use the right tool for the job. Again, focus on the deliverable. But one of our at Coda, what we like to do is we want to make sure that we're right no matter what we do. We do things certain ways. We have a kind of methodical fieldwork process. Not all targets. We throw sprinkle some targets, but we make sure that we're right, because we like delivering stuff that's just high quality.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of Shaun's answer. It always depends on what your end goal is. So even in the context of Avvir, we've got kind of two different products, right? You've got progress monitoring and construction verification. And I kind of hinted at this during the talk, is if you're just trying to understand how much of your project is installed and where you at in terms of progress, then you choose a certain type of tool, mobile scans, photos. But if you want really high accuracy, that's when you start to make some more advanced decisions about using the much higher level scanners, like the terrestrial scanners, that everyone's talking about. And you kind of make similar decisions. I guess really those two different avenues have to deal with both the accuracy and noise question, right? So that's how I kind of think about it.
Yeah, I think in the application of events, the point cloud wasn't the end goal, so it was the model, the mesh model that we'd make through Revit, and yeah, we would scan some event venues that would be operational restaurants that have hundreds of people walking around. So ultimately, our goal was like a LOD 200 model at the end and materiality. So we would just focus on the Matterport for that reference, and also not be too fussed in the actual point cloud itself.
I guess this question is more about how you, I guess, convince customers to move into this new data age of reality capture. How do we overcome the simplicity of a PDF reporting analysis? Do we just wait for paper and email attachment to go away before delivering something sophisticated?
That's a good question. And everyone obviously that's watching this can appreciate that question. The more we see the global adoption, I think this is almost like an organic type of change. We're seeing a lot inside of Clark, where for Clark, a lot of it was really changing the laptop, the standard issue laptop that went out to all the engineers, went from just a crap laptop to now what we call the standard BIM issue. So that now all the engineers at start get a computer that can at least just handle the models, point cloud. Well, point clouds are kind of a different animal, but at least that was like the biggest thing on, I think, at the Clark side, was getting people the right tools so they can even use it. And so I think it'll be an organic change, from the PDFs and to where it's just pure model. And then it also comes down to when permitting things. I think other parts of the world, the contract document is a model, and we're not there yet. Once that hits, look out. Then it'll really kind of take off.
Yeah, I don't know that. I guess I'll address the question a little bit differently, because it like you're saying, Weibo, I think it speaks to the simplicity and almost flattening of these really sophisticated different data types that we deal with. There's so much data and different modes of representation that go into it, but at the end of the day, you have to use it to make some sort of decision, right? And in order to make those decisions quickly and efficiently, you need a simplified version of all the inputs that have gone into helping create those types of reports. So even, looking at our platform, we can overlay a 10 gig scan over a model that a team of 50 people have worked on over the course of 9 months. And yet, at the end of the day, some project manager or vice president just wants to know how much is installed correctly and how far am I. Uh, so I don't know that it's going to totally go away, but being able to present different layers and scales of information, I think, is where it's really going to have to head, and we're going to have to figure out how to marry those two things together.
And for events, I guess probably less as important of a deliverable. But let's say if you have planners, they're still scheduling furniture and decorations. They're still very much using PDFs and traditional workflows, since this is sort of a very new concept in terms of event planning. But I think ultimately the clients, the people using these venues for events, are much more interested in things that are visual and seeing the 3D capacities that reality capture can provide in that sense.
Awesome. And I think this is a good segue into one of our viewer questions. I think all three of you had mentioned something about handling large amounts of data, and especially now when it's less easy for us to transfer files or like send someone a hard drive. How do you guys manage these large data sets, and how do you take this large raw data set and turn it into kind of what you talked about, decision making, I guess, simplification forms for your users?
No, each as far as with the terrestrial scanners, and well, I guess they also have some mobile ones. But let's say Faro and Leica. Let's just talk about those because they're more the mainstream ones. Each of them have their own kind of proprietary software that essentially what happens is you take these big point clouds, push them up to a vault, let's say, and then that does a compression factor, and then someone can tap into that vault and pull it down at a much smaller scale. Where they get you is you got to buy all these individual little kind of pieces and parts. But that's one of the ways that we handle it. And other ways that we handle it is by unifying and decimating down our point clouds. So instead of it being a 20 gig, it might start out as a 20 gig file. We'll decimate it and unify it down to where if we can get to under 8 gigs, we try to live around 4 to 5. We seem that kind of be one that we can kind of share. But that is still a little bit of the struggle in the industry is sharing point clouds. I know Matt showed a couple things for like web-based viewers. Those are starting to make some traction, and that's something I look forward to is more of a like a better web-based stuff where we can kind of share things.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of an intelligent answer here that's not so simple as just make sure you've got a high-speed internet connection. uh, because believe it or not, I don't really know that there's a better answer. But we even at Avvir, we do a lot of the things that Shaun is talking about, where you have to make some decisions about how much data you actually need to display, whatever analysis result or interest you have as it pertains to your project. And I do think, a lot more people are moving to these web-based viewers, and I mean, even our viewer is totally web-based. And there's another piece of this too, that not only are we just talking about having web-based viewers, but mobile viewers. And there's been a lot of talk in our company in particular about, banking on the fact that 5G is going to revolutionize the speed at which we can transfer data, so that you don't just have to be sitting at a laptop to see this information, but you can see it from anywhere.
Yeah. So I think with our ultimate customer being the the person looking to have an event, we try to get everything as fast as possible on the web. We want someone to be able to browse to this information on a phone while they're scrolling multiple venues, for instance. So, but we also don't want to expect of them to have the skills to navigate a point cloud and take measurements using different tools in the web. So trying to overcome that hurdle is something that I think has led to us creating these sort of interactive videos rather than leaving it up for people to navigate through point clouds. That's been our challenge.
I think that feeds into our next question well. Like everybody is adapting value capture, digital twins is becoming more and more a popular topic in our industry. I guess what advice or tips or caveats do you have for companies that are looking to adopt the technology and incorporate it into their workflow?
I'm going to keep this answer really simple. Just do it. I mean, you got to make the leap, or you're never going to. You know, that's the way I look at it. You know, just do it.
I like that answer. But I'll also say try to define what your pain points are and then make decisions according to that. Because if you buy $150,000 scanner, when you could have bought something, potentially a $300 camera for some sort of photogrammetry, you're going to be really disappointed when you have invested all that money. So, there's a almost endless number of things that you can do with all this reality capture technology, but I think it's important to really define what your pain point is that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, totally. I would say that to summarize both those answers as well. Just try it out. You will potentially get obsessed, and just there's literally nothing to lose from trying it out, and everything to gain.
That's
And
awesome.
just to add on that just a tiny bit, Matt even mentioned in his how he rented a scanner. You know, maybe if that's the avenue, rent it, try it out. If not, there's tons of vendors that do it, including, I mean, obviously us Coda, and there's plenty of people that do it. So maybe that's the avenue to get in. Then just buy one.
Absolutely. Shaun, on that topic, what would you guys suggest in terms of equipment and software for, someone new trying out reality capture?
You can't really go wrong on. I mean, you got your the two mainstream ones, as I mentioned earlier, Leica and Faro. They're both really good. The Leica P series are big and bulky. They're super accurate, but they're big and bulky, so that's not probably best for everyone. The Leica RTC 360 and the Faro like S150 or S350, those are pretty comparable. Those are going to be more on your kind of your high end terrestrial scanning side. And then, but if you're looking to just do things more, if you know you're just creating models, if you know you're not delivering high end LOD 400 something or the other, BLK 360 is a lot cheaper. I think it's like an 18K price point, something like that. Those are good. If you're doing if you know you're going to be a ton of scanning, then maybe you got to look at some mobile stuff. But really, Faro and Leica, those are your two main guys that have all the support software. Those are probably your two main ones.
Yeah, again, a fantastic answer. I would also recommend starting to look at some of the newer players coming onto the scene, that have started to develop their own hardwares in the past few years. The Leicas are and the Faros, they're powerhouses. But in addition to working with some of the smaller players, you might also be able to get a little bit more out of working with them because they're newer and they might be a little bit more incentivized to try to see how they can integrate into your workflow. And some of those guys are like the Cardas. Navis is another one. That's Navis with two V's, not Navisworks. I mean, even but both of those are actually mobile scanners. But then they're, like Shaun was saying, even at the Leicas and Veros, each one of those companies have their own versions of mobile scanners as well. So don't forget about the small guys.
And I would say don't forget about the drones. I think you can have quite a lot of fun with drones. So, yeah.
Just don't fly them illegally like Matt does.
I'm legal now. I'm legal now.
I guess this is a more forward-looking question. In the last 5 to 10 years, what is that one advancement in reality capture that you think had the greatest impact in industry? And then looking to the future, what is some future advancement that you're looking forward to that you think will really unlock adoption and kind of the popularity of what you guys are doing?
I think previously one of the big ones was really size. When scanners got a little bit smaller, when they got where anyone doesn't really mind carrying it around, and that also and on top of that, it got price point down a little bit. That's when we saw real scanners just taking off all over the place. In the next 5 to 10 years, I think the biggest thing is going to be when everyone solves the coordinate issue. When everything comes into Revit, point clouds easily, automatically lined up as it's supposed to. When US survey feet go away in next year or a couple years, whenever that is, I think that's gonna push it up a lot more. When it's really simple to take a model and everything and just point clouds and plop them all into place, they all fall in exactly where they're supposed to be, and there's no differences. That'll push adoption because that'll get rid of the naysayers. Say, oh, it's never in the right spot. Oh, it sucks. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all those points. I one of the more recent things that I feel like is one of the most where the biggest opportunity really lies is when Apple decided to integrate LiDAR into their phone. So everyone's got a phone or everyone will have a phone that can capture scan data. So now, even to the size question, I don't have to pack like a gigantic armored case onto a plane when I'm going to site. My scanner's in my pocket. Um, and I just think that the opportunity with that is pretty tremendous. So, and it cuts down the barrier of entry to, I don't know, effectively zero.
Yeah, I agree. I think that inclusion has also got a lot of developers thinking of different applications for reality capture. So you're starting to see furniture companies using it to map out your own living room. And I think just beyond that, the boundaries will be endless as more and more people go, oh, hang on a second, I can map that spatially and correctly.
Amazing. And I think some of the points you guys have mentioned leads into this next question, which is, we all sort of come from, construction architecture background, and, reality capture as a technology is really being used by a lot of different industries and looking at various different use cases. So in your mind, what is one thing other industries can learn from you and what you do? And what is something that you hope to learn from an industry that you're not in terms of reality capture?
The wedding scanner already opened my mind a little bit of where like just other avenues of stuff. Like I see it and I get it being involved in rally capture so long. I mean it's such a good question because is us that are addicted to this stuff, as we've kind of almost said over and over again, being obsessed with it. I mean anywhere where you need measurements, you can scan something and there's your world. There it is right there. Like there's the actual real world conditions that you're looking at. So whether it's wedding planning or a construction site. I mean, mining's a big one. Tunneling, we done some cool stuff with some tunnels. Um, a lot of stuff we're doing now. We're trying to get to is more marrying design models with point clouds to verify things work certain ways and how they and how they interact with each other. Um, but yeah, I'm still like the wedding scanner thing. I love. So that kind of opened my mind up a little bit. But I think you can do it's endless, honestly.
Yeah, the wedding scanner, fantastic. Pretty amazing that you managed to integrate that with Zola. That's pretty cool. But anyway, I I feel like I am particularly inspired by the automotive industry uh, because they are leveraging lidar to make instant decisions. You just think about the amount of hands that our data has to pass through for someone to get some sort of actionable analysis versus, obviously the scenarios are totally different, but embedding that into a car to make a half a second decision about when to stop if it needs to. I feel like that's pretty exciting, and wondering how fast we can start to implement that in the construction industry to not just provide you with some sort of digital twin eventually, but a digital twin within, by the end of the day, even so.
I am particularly interested in the sort of archival process and heritage preservation aspects of especially photogrammetry mixed with point clouds. I think the ability to capture the built world, or not even the built world, but the environment as it is, and preserve it and log it like that is really interesting. And especially in a world of reduced travel, it's educational. I think it's a really good opportunity to sort of experience spaces that you can't get to. Um, and yeah, in terms of exploring the world that way, I think that's interesting.
It seems like everyone is kind of in agreement that reality capture will eventually be ubiquitous and in everyone's hands. I guess to that, how long do you guys think it will take? And what do you guys think is the biggest barrier between now and ubiquitous reality capture?
I mean, we've seen and we've even mentioned it through the pandemic, and Kyle talked to it. That's one of the a positive thing that has come out of this. How much more things have been adopted. As far as when, I mean, we're on the path. Maybe, I mean, it's happening right now. I mean, you see it, but there's a wedding scanner. You see Avvir doing analysis of a scan to a model. It's within the next 5 years, I think, and it's only gonna get more when people have their phones. Now, let's say you can go out and let's say in a construction world, this I think this actually has a pretty valid use case. You have your phone that can do scanning, and there's a utility that they just installed. The utilities get installed, they immediately get covered up. So that it got installed. Now you can scan it with your phone. Okay, go ahead and cover it up, and then you document where that utility is. Like that's I think like in construction, at least a real world use case that could we can see in the next 5 years.
To me, I a little bit feel like it's definitely going to be in the next 5 years, I would say. But in terms of more finite timing, I would say it's a little bit of a chicken or the egg scenario where people now have access to all this technology, but what do you do with it? Which I think people are just now starting to answer those questions. And even with developments like on the iPhone, I think now software developers are starting to think about all the different use cases for how to leverage that technology. I think once they start to make some decisions about that or come up with ideas about how to leverage it, then that gap of adoption is going to shrink pretty dramatically.
Yeah, I agree with both of you, and I think also parallel to everything, you can't discount the entertainment industry, whether it be through like a CGI company or a gaming company. They are also investing lots of money on their side to sort of pull in the real world into whatever they're developing. So I think that will also start to affect the spike, and it'll keep shooting up. And yeah, 5 years I think is pretty good estimate.
Well, I guess we'll have this panel again in 5 years to reality check all of your predictions. I guess my final question, seeing as everyone here is very addicted to reality capture, what would be your ideal scanning day if you can have any technology imaginable?
Similar to Matt, the heritage stuff is it's so cool. Like I love, let's say like Machu Picchu or something like that. Like being able to scan that and be able to say I scan Machu Picchu would just be ridiculous. I prefer terrestrial laser scanners because of the accuracy and just how good they look. But then something I also really want to kind of get into a little bit more is combining drone data with the terrestrial scanning data, because then you're getting the clean look from the drone data, but then the high accuracy of the point cloud data. So my dream would be Machu Picchu with drone and terrestrial, and just creating just an awesome data set.
Yeah, I was sitting here trying to formulate an answer while you were answering, and I was trending in the same direction of mounting some sort of a terrestrial scanner to a drone, uh, and I don't know, maybe capturing something in outer space.
That's a good answer. Yeah, I'd scan Mars. I don't know. I think my ideal day. I don't know. Can I cop out? Say maybe the Opera House with terrestrial and drone. Sydney Opera House.
Does it have anything to do with you being Australian?
Yeah, and lack of quick thinking for an answer.
I think we have 3 minutes left. Timon has a question for you, Matt. What are some examples of gaming progress being made in reality capture?
I won't be able to give you a specific, but I've definitely seen some. YouTube videos of that happening. And especially if you explore Sketchfab, a lot of creators, sort of individual model creators, are selling their assets on Sketchfab for use in games. So that's sort of my understanding of it at the moment. But yeah, I'll do my research for 5 years when I come back to this.
Well, see you in 5 years. Let's go around and why don't all of you give a closing statement?
Cool. I'd go back to one of the questions you kind of mentioned about where I said just do it. If you're looking to get into this stuff, research it, rent some equipment, and get into it. It simply works.
My closing statement is similar. There's no time like the present. Uh, Things have developed incredibly quickly in the past couple of years, also in the past few months. Just imagine where it's going to go in the next few years.
Yeah, I would say for everyone who's interested, just do it. Get out there. In terms of if you're interested in what I'm doing, this is very much a side project at the moment, and it's progressing very slowly, especially with the pandemic. But if there's any interest, I'm happy to share information. I would like it to grow in the future, so yeah, don't hesitate to reach out.
I hope everyone's going out and renting scanners as we speak. But your panelists were Shaun Lewis from Coda, Kyle Johnson from Avvir, and Matt Hamilton from the Wedding Scanner. And I'm sure if you guys have any questions or any further things you want to discuss with them, they'd be happy to have a chat, not only here, but also on our Slack channel. And I'm sure you can reach out to them through LinkedIn or any of the other social networks we're all a part of.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.